And a very good morning to you. Welcome to this Friday edition of The Source. I'm Tiffany Bacon. Thank you so very much for joining me. Happy Friday, happy Friday, happy Friday. And what a beautiful weekend it's going to be. So much going on in the world, in the city. First and foremost, I got to say hi to super producer, Miss Kayla J. Miss Kayla, I don't know what's going on, but I can't have you chat with me like I normally do on this one. I'm so sorry. We can't chat right now, but I got to give you a shout out because you're always doing amazing things. Please make sure you check out Miss Kayla J's program tonight at midnight. I know she will not disappoint. Much love going out to our Facebook Live viewers, also to our YouTube Live viewers. You know, I always appreciate your presence. Thank you for checking us out today. Last Friday was amazing, y'all. It was great to do a broadcast for the first time in over a year. So being at the Fresh Grocer, seeing so many of you come out to say hello, it was just amazing. We had a wonderful turnout. We are still doing our early bird membership drive. It continues through tomorrow, which is Juneteenth, which we'll talk about in a moment. So please make sure you check out our website, wurdradio.com. Please make sure if you have not renewed your membership, please make sure you do that. We have specials running right now. You can do that this weekend through till tomorrow. And if you're not yet a member, what a great time to become a member. The world is opening up. Activities are happening. People are going outside doing things. And we're going to bring it all to you. We are going to bring it all to you. So why not be a member? Check out our early bird membership drive. It is happening through tomorrow. So speaking of live broadcast, by the way, it was great to see so many Word staff members that I literally have not seen in over a year. Like, it was such a family reunion. It was great. It was really, really great. I'm so happy that so many people also wore their masks. Amen. Hallelujah. Because we may be open, but COVID is still out there. So much love for the folks that did that. But we have more broadcasts coming up this weekend. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. It is an official holiday. Tomorrow is Juneteenth, and the Freedom Day celebration happens at 52nd and Haverford. There will be a Freedom Day march beginning at 9:30 a.m., plus a day full of activities. We will be broadcasting live from 9 till 11 a.m. Please make sure you tune in. If you're not able to get to any of the festivities for this, that's okay. We're going to bring it right to your speaker, your own personal speaker, so you can check it out. Michael Cord will host the live broadcast. If you can be in person, go on down there, 52nd and Haverford. After that, it's Art in the Park at 12 noon. So make sure you check that out. That's happening in Malcolm X Park. And there's a Freedom Day Float House contest. So to find out more about that, you can always go over to JuneteenthPhilly.org. That is where you'll find all the information for the activities and festivities happening around the Juneteenth Freedom Day celebration tomorrow. Speaking of live broadcasts, I will be broadcasting live at the Woodmere Museum up in Chestnut Hill. There is going to be an amazing jazz performance. Oh my goodness, when was the last time you experienced live jazz? All right? Exciting. So it's a Juneteenth holiday for all, a special holiday commemorating the date in 1865 when the news arrived to the enslaved African Americans in Galveston, Texas, of their emancipation from slavery. It is going to feature the Arpeggio Jazz Ensemble performing selections from the jazz opera Never Back Down. This is going to be phenomenal at the Woodmere Museum. Also, Nina Lirespect Ball, poet, activist, all around decent human being. She's going to be there as well. This is also in partnership with the African American Museum of Philadelphia. I will be your host for this live broadcast. It begins at 5 p.m. at the Woodmere Museum. So there's so much happening in Philly. I want you to come out and get to as many of it as you feel comfortable getting to. Wear your mask, bring your hand sanitizer, whatever you need to bring, lawn chair, whatever you need to bring. Just be prepared and ready to come out and enjoy the festivities for Juneteenth. This also is Father's Day weekend. So in the midst of all this, we are celebrating fathers and Father's Day. So later on in the program, we're going to speak with a friend of mine, someone that I would like for you to get to know. His name is Rod Dion, and he's going to share his fatherhood story. If you remember, around Mother's Day, I was able to have several moms on to talk about their motherhood story. So we're going to hear his fatherhood story later on today. Also on stage door at 12 noon, Jeffrey Page and I are going to speak to a dynamic young man who started out as an actor and now doing anti-racism policy work. Check out his journey, because I'm sure he has a lot he wants to say about that as well. But to get the show started off, in the midst of all these activities, I'm welcoming a dear friend to the show who is no stranger to WURD, Mr. Donovan West. Hey, Donovan, good morning.
Good morning, T-Bag. How you doing?
I'm breathing on schedule. How you doing?
I can't complain at all. Life is good. No complaints over here. None.
Amen. 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 So let's get down to the business first and foremost of Juneteenth. I think prior to 2020, there were a whole lot of people that didn't even know what Juneteenth was, but we all became aware of quite a lot of things in 2020. So first and foremost, tell us what you know about Juneteenth and if you're excited about the activities and festivities coming up this weekend.
Well, I'm extremely excited about the festivities. I mean, Juneteenth, as you know already, is the June 19th, right? Is a historical reference to the emancipation of slaves. And what people don't know is that it was a full 2.5 years before, people were actually responding to that, right? I mean, I'm talking about down south. So when you bring up the state of Texas, well, this is where it went down. This is where that official, removal of what was historically and traditionally the practice of slavery was actually being enforced. And so June 19th, to be specific, was the date, and so that's where Juneteenth came from. It means a lot to me. The first time I actually heard of it was actually in my undergrad years at Penn State. I was studying minority studies, so I was aware of it. But what was interesting to me is that I didn't see like really good representation of such a historic moment. I'm talking about across the country. So it means a lot to me to actually see, it come to this place now, right? I mean, it's so long. I mean, it's been so long, but I'm happy that here we are, right? That now it's officially a holiday, and what an amazing time it is to make it a holiday. What I do love about it is that when we talk about Philadelphia has definitely represented for a while now. They've definitely represented. I want to say close to 30 years. 20 plus years in the space of celebrating, of galvanizing people, of influencers, and participating on a large scale. And also, I believe it's the biggest celebration in the country, or has had the biggest celebration in the country. So when you talk about the festivities for tomorrow, oh yeah, I'm hyped. I'm gonna be there, 52nd and Haversburg, probably like 9 a.m. There's a group of stakeholders, community stakeholders that. Sorry, that's my silly watch. Anyway, so my these Apple Watches stupid. So
don't give them no more shine. You could have just said my watch, my smartwatch.
Sorry. Yeah, y'all cut me a check. I'll give you all the details later.
And they won't. It's like no.
Yeah, I know, right? So haters. Anyway, Black Brotherly Love, council, leadership council. It consists of a number of different organizations that have come together and are very helpful actually in galvanizing people to still participate in a large level in Juneteenth activities. So extremely excited to be a part of that group. Bringing information and resources. So people are going to get not just inspired, but also the tools necessary to do it safely. So there's going to be
Mhm.
sanitizer, there's going to be masks, okay, that are going to be given to everyone that wants to be a part of the march, so that you can do so and not necessarily risk it. Because, like you said, open does not mean over. Let's be clear, okay? Open doesn't mean over. So,
Yeah.
while people are coming together, it's a beautiful thing. We're ushering in summer and all that great stuff. We got to do this thing like, safely, so that we're not watching stuff spike. So I'm excited to be in this space, but yeah, don't get it twisted. If you don't see my face, it's because it's behind a mask. Okay.
But hey, but you'll be there, and just talk to me for a minute about the whole idea of being out, going to events. The official reopening was last
Yeah.
week. We know people have been out and about longer than that, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden it was just like an explosion of event flyers on my timeline, something we have not seen in over a
Oh
year.
man.
And it was like,
Yeah.
whoa, like seeing flyers pop up all of a sudden, like we're doing this and there's this event and this outdoor thing and this thing. How does that feel to you to get back into the swing of going somewhere to experience something?
No, it's interesting, because I think the first thing that comes to mind is I'm looking at something, and it's not like, this looks good, I'm there. I'm looking at it, and it's almost as if I'm looking at a brochure or something. I'm literally looking at this thing saying, hmm, okay, let's look at the venue. Let's think about, how many
Mhm.
people are going out. Or what time of day. Okay, blah. Like, I'm literally dissecting this thing and looking at it from a different angle altogether. So for me, at least personally, as I'm looking at these flyers that are flying by my timeline as well, I'm looking at it like, well, that's great. Oh, okay, that space. Oh yeah, that's real open there. Okay, cool. And I know the layout, so I'm good. And anything
Mhm.
that's saying indoors, yeah, nah, you lost me with that. But again, I'm looking, I'm paying attention. I'm seeing a lot of day parties and these open spaces. So I'm saying, like, people get it, and it's exciting to see. I guess remnants of normality, right? Like
Mhm.
examples of it starting to come together slowly. But it's, for me, when I talk to people about like moving forward cautiously, I'm really talking to myself first. I'm like, there's something about it, right? The change of the weather, the season, and then these opportunities to hang out and kind of get back to normal, catch up with people. Like you said earlier, you were able to catch up with some of the WRD crew, and it was like a reunion. So much of these events, when you see certain types of events, and who typically may come out to that, you're like, oh man, that's the reunion. That's like coming together in the schoolyard for the first day of spring after a long winter, right? Everyone's out and about and then just enjoying it. So it's hard not to become, or surrender to that feeling to just run out and just be amongst everybody and not have a care in the world. But I got to think twice and three times. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
of a it's a little bit of a downer, but I think that's just us, thinking through it. Like, just think, like, just slow down. We're going to get there eventually, and it's encouraging to see that there is a decline in infections and things of that nature in certain spaces.
Right.
But I definitely don't want to be a part of the resurgence.
Amen to that. Let's be 100% amen to that. So
Yeah.
let's spend a little bit more time talking about Juneteenth. For some, it came out of the blue. For others of us, we've known about it for a while, but maybe have never participated in any celebration of Juneteenth. And then there are some who just feel like, yeah, okay, what's the big deal? It doesn't
Yeah.
change anything. What is your response to people who don't have any excitement about this, who feel like it's not going to change anything?
Yeah.
Not that a celebration of Juneteenth is set up to change anything specifically, but what do you
Yeah.
how do you respond to that?
No, I think that's a very good question. I think, ultimately, there isn't a one size fits all kind of scenario that's going to solve everything. This is, a situation that's going to be applicable to resolving the race issues, the inequalities that we constantly experience and are regularly demonstrated day in and day out. I think what's important to understand is that it's progress, is to be focused on the fact that there's progress. And so simply with this being a holiday, there is you're talking about across the country being forced to acknowledge again that people of color have value, and that there is value in that. And so how that actually shakes out to modifications in terms of how people are trained, or how people change their attitude or behavior. At the very least, the impact is on some sense of value for some people, and it's progress. So it wasn't there before, and now it is. It's the same way as when people say, well, it doesn't make sense to remove certain statues or other things that it's just an item. What does it mean? It's a representation of an old mindset. And so the idea that you can have something so significant as Juneteenth and it not be acknowledged is reflective of a mindset. And so removing that and making it a holiday actually now starts to adopt a new mindset that I think is helpful in terms of how people start to establish a value with people of color.
Absolutely. 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 So when we think about the event that's happening tomorrow, the Freedom Day celebration, you talk about the march, but what else will be going on? What else can people look forward to tomorrow?
Well, I'm looking forward to the house floats. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I want to see how many people paid attention and are interested in participating in this contest. So if you don't know, house floats, they originally originated out of I think it was New Orleans, and this is just a way of having a parade while you walk the parade, as opposed to the parade coming down the street and being on display to you. So the people that are along the march route, right, in West Philadelphia, are encouraged to participate in this competition, and the winner of and that is a person whose house is most decorated in a way that is most pleasing. I wouldn't say the house that looks the most interesting, because that may go in the wrong direction, but whoever wins, they get about $1,000, right? And I think that's pretty cool. So those that are going to be on the march tomorrow morning will be able to actually also see a lot of these homes, and I believe they have the judges and all that good stuff, and then the winner will definitely be $1,000 richer for getting creative and not having to go anywhere, right? So in the past, the float is going down the block, and you had to dress up these huge things and then go on this little parade route. Well, it's different, right? In this case, the people will be walking by, checking out your house, and you get an opportunity to be very festive and creative and do your thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like. I'm looking forward to getting some good laughs, because I'm pretty sure people are going to go left with it, and it's going to be hilarious. But it's going to, like you said earlier, it's going to be great weather. So I'm excited to be out there in that space and check it out. And along with that, there are going to be people who have like resource tables. I think in other areas you can also get access to information, access to other pieces of information around activities that are going on throughout the month of June and beyond, summer activity, that type of thing. So I'm excited to see everyone come out and celebrate, in a way that that we should. It's, I don't know if you know about June also being Soul Food Month. I don't know if you know that, but it is. So
No.
yeah. So as a big guy, well, of course you would expect that, and I'm going to play myself and be totally fitting of my profile as a big guy. So yes, it is
Can
Soul
you
Food Month.
stop that? Oh, Lord.
Listen, man, listen. Look, I'm just saying that to say to the people, it these things are in alignment. Soul Food Month, right? We got Father's Day, right? Is in this month. I'm just saying,
As in this
everybody.
weekend.
Yeah, but I'm celebrating. I said the month on purpose. Like, you say your birthday, you say the month, you don't say the day anymore nowadays, right? So you picking up what I'm putting down. So anyway, what I'm saying, people, is like, if you're gifted in the art of soul food, bless a father or two. Okay, yeah, that's my PSA. I'm done. I had to say that while we were talking about monthly celebrations. But it's gonna be amazing tomorrow, and I'm hoping that people come out and bring that energy and get
Mm,
reunited with one another, get reacquainted with just being out, but do it in a manner where they're not going overboard.
yeah.
And I hope the people hearing this will spread the word. Like, let's do this, but let's do it so that we can actually be around and not be on punishment for 2 weeks, aka quarantining.
So, okay, for those who are late to the party about how to decorate and if their home is on the route, where should they go to get all the specifics and what they can do, in less than 24 hours, basically.
Well, I'm going to quote you. You mentioned the website, right? And that is it PhillyJuneteenth.org or I
Uh,
is I've been listen. There's like 20,000
it's okay. It's
sites
all
I've
good.
been looking at since this became a holiday. There's a ton of sites, by the way, that just popped up, which is real crazy.
Yeah,
So
I'm
excuse,
sure.
I didn't want to mess it up. Go ahead.
It's juneteenthphilly.org.
There it is.
Juneteenthphilly.org.
JuneteenthPhilly.org. That's it.
Yes.
See, my dyslexic blood, I'm all twisting the words around. But anyway, go there. You should have information to talk about, again, how you can participate. If you're along the route and all that good stuff, it's not too late. You may have to run to the dollar store real quick, go to the party station and get creative with it, get some volunteers, but do your thing. And I'm pretty sure it'll be a great experience. Even if you don't win, it'll just be cool to participate in something different this year.
Yeah. We're about to go to break, but before that, let me just ask you this really, really quick question. So, are you still celebrating July 4th
Why are you gonna
this
put
year?
me on? Why are you doing this? Right? You listen.
How
Let me tell
about
you something.
how about I give you a commercial break to let that marinate since you were talking about food? I'm going to let that marinate for you for a second. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will continue our conversation with Donovan West as we talk about Juneteenth. And then we are going to get into his fatherhood story. He is a father. And this weekend is also Father's Day. So there's a lot more to talk about. Please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with more conversation after this. Hmm. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to the Friday edition of The Source. I'm Tiffany Bacon here on WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, and streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Again, hello to all our Facebook and YouTube viewers. We definitely appreciate you. We are talking about the celebration of Juneteenth. Juneteenth is tomorrow. And there is a big event happening in Philly at 52nd and Haverford. WURD will be broadcasting live, so make sure you tune in to the radio so you can hear about all of the festivities. Michael Cord will be your host on air. Here to chat with me about it right now, dear friend to the show, Mr. Donovan West. I asked you right before the break, are you celebrating 4th of July this year?
Look, let me tell you the truth.
Please only tell me the truth.
No, I don't. And it's not just this year. Like I'm not a, I'm not really a big 4th of July type person. So I don't really do a whole lot. Like I'm over here at this barbecue or anything like that. I've never really been that guy. So despite the comments I made earlier about enjoying some great soul food, and if anyone wants to invite me, to partake in the grub, great. But am I really a person that's big on July 4th? I've never really been. As a Jamaican kid, it was never a big deal either. So when I was growing up, so I can't say that I'm that person that definitely took a lot into celebrating before all of the political / historical kind of drama around how many of the holidays that exist really are for us, right? Or really are a celebration of the union of the states and the and the ideals that are usually promoted but not necessarily executed or demonstrated, right?
Right. I was just curious. Just that I'd
Yeah. How
ask.
about you? What's up, T-Bag? What about you?
Yeah, no.
You know?
It's all about it's all about Juneteenth, and there's so many things to do, and the beauty of it is that we do have the opportunity to go out and experience some things. There are some activities happening at the Johnson House in Germantown. Please check them out. Look them up. I'll try and get the information before we close out the segment, but look them up because also there's walking tours, and you can have this as a full celebration, but also educational for those family members or friends that aren't well versed on what Juneteenth is and why we're even going through all the trouble to celebrate. This is a great opportunity to learn and then celebrate some decent weather. Our weather has been so unpredictable this season. 1 minute, Memorial Day week, I had on a fleece. I don't know about you, but I had on a fleece. And then the next week I was burning to death. It was just night and day. So celebrate decent, stable weather, be outside with your mask on, and enjoy the festivities. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Keep it simple. I like it.
Keep it simple and celebratory. We could use some joy, we could. Speaking of that, celebratory and using some joy, it is also Father's Day weekend. So talk about a jam-packed weekend, things to do, right? As a father, how do you feel about this particular holiday? I know a lot of energy goes into Mother's Day. Not the same energy goes into Father's Day.
Facts.
I know, I'm trying to change some of that, at least with giving equal time to fathers sharing their stories as I gave to the mothers for Mother's Day to share their motherhood stories. So I'm giving you the opportunity to share your fatherhood story. But first, I want to know, how do you feel about the holiday in general?
No, I think Father's Day is a great day to demonstrate, or to remind, people about the father figures in their life. And I think it's great. As an idea, just like the majority of holidays, they are really supposed to, remind people to be more mindful of the different people in their lives, right? So if you don't celebrate mothers regularly, here's Mother's Day, right? If you don't celebrate, your mate, your love. Here's Valentine's Day, here's Father's Day, right? So how it's demonstrated, how it's illustrated, like, yeah, that's another thing. The shade is different. So I could definitely say that at the end of the day, that's a problem in terms of how much energy it gets. But having a day that represents, fatherhood, yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. There are a lot of great fathers that I know, and that I'm excited to know because of how they demonstrate the love for their children or their child, and how they move in their communities. So why not? Let's have it.
Yeah. All right. So if you don't mind, share your fatherhood story. Your thoughts when you found out you were going to become a father and how they've evolved over time.
Well, my thoughts, when I first heard or received the news that I was going to be a father, um, I really was just like, okay, that didn't resonate with me, in a way that was like significant at that time. I thought, okay, I'll go through the motions, and what I mean by motions, I was going to show up at all the doctor's visits, and I did that. I even went to hypno therapy courses, or these classes where it would show you how to be very calming and assuring during the actual during the actual procedure of giving birth, right? So while she's giving birth, the things to say and to do. So I actually was not just going to the doctor's visit, but also going to these sessions, these classes, and I was definitely in a good space. And what was interesting was that when my daughter was born, I literally was there to help kind of usher her out of mom. I cut the umbilical cord, marched over to the sink to wipe her down and put her in her first diaper, and I just took a good look in her face, and it was just like, that's when it was like, wow, it hit me, like that's your princess. And I just took a good look, I smiled, and I just looked at her real good, like, yeah, that's me all day. Walked her over to her mom, and I just took a great, like, this, just like, wow, okay, game time. It was
Mhm.
like go, and my life and everything, how I looked at everything, it really just, it shifted everything. How I looked at it. She became automatically the reason for every move, every decision. Whenever I was in a dark space or whatever, I just automatically, I just thought about her. It didn't matter that she became the one size fits all shot in the arm I needed to help navigate through tough times, even as I was changing, certain things that I was doing in my career space, personally, all that good stuff. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's what fatherhood meant to me. It meant that it's official, like the clock starts now, in terms of who I am as a man, and shifting my role in this universe.
Mm. Interesting. That's beautiful. I love hearing fathers talk like that about the first time they see their children,
Hmm.
or the first time they hold their children. And we all know for a while the narrative about Black fathers is that they're just not there. There are whole songs about it. There's, lots of imaging, storylines that go with that. What is your response to that? And how, or do you, let me not assume that you do you verbally combat that when you're faced with that? If someone's, reciting that narrative to you, what is your response?
Yeah, I think that when people bring it up, yeah, I'll let them know that, what are you actually looking at. And what they when they say, what do you mean? I said, no, I mean, are you actually looking at this? Is this your experience, or is this something more along the lines of what you hear, and what's being shared with you, that type of thing? Because you know I'm not exactly sure where you live at or whatever, like, but I see fathers. I have friends that are fathers that are great fathers, and I'm not saying that I don't know people that are not necessarily in spaces where they need to be in terms of being there for their child or children, but the overwhelming majority of people that I know that have children, they take care of the children. So I do know that at the end of the day, media will support negative images. And if you're looking at the last thing that you saw or something, okay. But if you're talking about taking real stock, taking real inventory of your surroundings and whether or not there's a father figure or a father that's been around, people that are responsible, that are stepping into that space, there are a lot more father figures than the media will tell you. Um, however, I can't control what you experience, but I will tell you that more than likely what you're looking at, whether it's a post or something on the news or whatever, is to just
Mhm.
reaffirm some negativity. Now, do we need more fathers to be more present? Absolutely, but I know for a fact, that especially from my social service days, working at People for People, we had a fatherhood program where we served 500 fathers a year for over 5 years, and so seeing tons of fathers who wanted to be present, who were very much interested in, participating not just physically, but also financially in the lives of their child or children. It was beautiful to see and to hear them talk about the plans that they had and the things that they wanted to do and how they wanted to invest further in themselves so that they can be a better father, a better provider, a better protector. So maybe I've just been exposed to too many good fathers, and that's why I feel a certain kind of way about it. But I think also what's important is that we, as fathers, as well as the mothers of children who have great fathers, need to help change the narrative. They need to be more vocal and more visual about showing examples of that and helping to rewrite the narrative around black men and overall just not being responsible or running away from their responsibilities, whatever way you want to spin it. But I do think it's up to us to do that, to be more transparent about that. So instead of just, showing some cool pictures of us, dressed a certain kind of way or at this certain party with our boys or with our girls or whatever, maybe we should, invest a little bit more time in also showing, pictures of us just doing nothing with our child or children or having a good time or standing outside the church or the mosque or at the supermarket or whatever, right? Just going for a walk to let people know that beyond this moment, which is called Father's Day, there are a lot of men out there that are doing this regularly. This is a way of life. Thank you for acknowledging us, but this is a way of life. So even with my daughter now being in another state, I struggle a lot in terms of not being as present as I used to be, but trust and believe I do everything in my power to still make sure that I have a physical presence, a financial presence, an emotional presence, a spiritual presence in her life. And when you love your child or children that way, there should be nothing that stops you from wanting to be in that space. So for fathers, absolutely, I think those that are not showing up, they need to show up. And for the many that are showing up, right, they need to be more vocal and visual about how they're showing up to help to shift the overall sentiment about fathers.
How did you learn how to be the father that you are? Did you learn by example or did you learn by example of what not to do?
The the latter, right? I did not have a father in my life, and I when I was young, my father got kicked out of this country and just never came back. So he got kicked back to Jamaica, and so for me, I didn't grow up with a father. My father figure, though, my grandfather who came over and was present for a certain portion of my life. So I appreciate that, and I've had some father figures throughout my journey, but I looked at it as, well, okay, what are all the things that I need to do and the things I need to be to be an awesome dad. And even with my daughter, as a teenager, I still am looking at other ways that I can still do my best to connect through the teenage years. Right, that's challenging and all that good stuff. And one thing that I promise her is that that I'm going to remain human, that I will never try to come off as something more than human, so that she understands that you can talk to me, that we can be that we can be in a relationship where I can take feedback and input and all that good stuff, that we can just have some dialogue and that and be transparent. So I tell her all the time, the number one thing I want with my child is to have a relationship with her, and if I can do that, then I can impart, high levels of emotional intelligence. I can also make sure that, she's able to be a really good critical thinker. And then, of course, through the relationship that we have overall, be one of the people that are in her corner to help her navigate through some of these challenges in life. So that's the best that I can do. And of course, developing a great relationship with her mom as best I can to make sure that she sees examples of healthy relationships, and also, some of the things we talked about in terms of good communication, trust, and all that great stuff. So that's really it for me, is being able to break it down and say, okay, this is what I believe good fatherhood is. And then, check in. It's not enough that I may have that intention. Is, whether or not she's actually receiving that in the spirit in which I intended. So you got to humble yourself to check in. Just because you love someone doesn't mean that they're going to receive the love, right? Just because you have certain intentions for someone doesn't mean that they're going to receive it that way. You have to, humble yourself to understand the lens in which that they're looking at you. So from time to time, that's what I do. I do the check-in where I'm like, okay, how's this going? How's that going? How am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. What are the things that you like? What's changed or whatever? Humble yourself to the idea that people change and how they receive you changes as well. So that's been a learning curve for me, because, often, we get convinced that because we're the parent, or because, we are the author of our own feelings and our behavior, that's enough. But the truth of the matter is, it's not. It's about making sure that you can leave a little space to for them to help you fine tune what you're doing.
Nice. Okay. Never heard it quite like that. All right, sir. I see you.
All right.
I have a question I need to ask you, but we're about to go to break. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to let it sit in your lap for a second. You can mull it over. And then when we come back, I want to hear your thoughts. The question is this: I want you to think about the quintessential father of your youth, whether it was 70s, 80s, like say, pick the 80s maybe. What did that person look like? What would that snapshot be? And compare it to the snapshot of the quintessential father today. What does that look like? What is he wearing? What does he say? Is he holding anything? If you just took a snapshot of the father from your youth, not your specific father, but any like quintessential father from your youth, mm-hmm. or a quintessential father from today, what would those pictures look like? So I want you to think about that. We're going to take a brief break. Please don't forget, our early bird membership is underway. It concludes tomorrow, Juneteenth. So if you have not signed up to be a member of WURD, now is an amazing time to do it. Or if you need to renew your membership, feel free to do it right now. Visit our website, WURDradio.com/early bird. So then you can become a member and all that comes with that. So stick around. We will be right back with more conversation after this. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. It is the Friday edition of The Source here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM. We are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Hello, Facebook and YouTube viewers. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Tiffany Bacon here with dear friend to the show, Mr. Donovan West. Hey, Donovan. Donovan is, hey. He is sharing his fatherhood story since it is also Father's Day weekend, in addition to being the celebration of Juneteenth, which is now a federal holiday. Awesome. So I asked you before the break if you could take a snapshot of the quintessential father from your youth and a snapshot of the quintessential father of today. What would those pictures look like? Let's start with the father from yesteryear.
The father from yesteryear would be someone who was around, active, very athletic. Would be able to, I'd be able to, play basketball with, football with, that type of thing. Someone that I would say would definitely be around financially, right, to participate and support, so that someone that probably would not want me to work, but just kind of focus on sports and school, that type of thing. Um, at least in the earlier years. Um, that would be the father from yesteryear. Just someone who is just you could talk to about stuff, but really into like cheerleading my various interests, if you will.
Okay. And the quintessential father from today.
The father from today would be just that smooth OG, that's just got a bunch of really cool stories, and the one that will play chess with you, while he's listening to jazz, or some roots rock reggae, and just talk to you about life, provide some perspectives, and still try to usher in, if you will, the next stage, right? Even to the point where it's like, hey, look, this is how your 40s are going to be. And here's some things to think about or whatever. So I think that would be kind of interesting to look at it from that perspective and say, like, Dad, you do know, like, real talk. I'm not, not no, but I would be tickled by that. I'd be touched by that as well. By that kind of presence and
Mhm.
wisdom, and just a reminder. Someone that you can get into arguments with about politics, and even how to interpret certain verses in the Bible, like
Mm.
whatever, just someone to be in that kind of space, and then go for a walk and talk about stuff, just kick it, like, so what's good with you, that type of thing. So I like the quintessential father still being someone that's present and just a good force when it comes to having some discussion, right?
Yeah.
and providing some additional perspective on life.
In your fatherhood story, share with us the most difficult thing you had to learn about being a father and the most surprisingly joyful thing you learned.
Hmm. The most difficult thing I learned about being a father is um, it's that you can't be everything, right? You can't be everything. You have to allow for the village to be a part of the journey as well. So so for instance, when it comes to children growing up, you may want them to say everything and to do everything and be totally transparent, but the truth of the matter is, there's a portion of who they are, and the certain things that they may express that may not come to you. It may go to mom, or it may go to your brother, their uncle, right? So it's important to make sure that you focus on like the family being present, so that it's not a matter of yes or no, but which one when it comes to being there. So that was hard for me because initially, my thing was, I'm just going to be everything. I'm going to, and
Mm.
it was hard to really acknowledge when she's there talking with Uncle Dorian about certain things that she wouldn't necessarily talk with me about or whatever. So it's like, what is that about? But as an uncle, I know what that's about, because there's my nieces and nephews that would talk to me about certain things they wouldn't necessarily talk to their mom and dad about. So, but it's just interesting when it hits home. It hits different.
Mm. And what about that surprisingly joyful thing you learned?
The surprisingly joyful thing I learned is just I the what you can learn, like what you can learn from your daughter or your child, period. Like there's a lot you can learn. I remember picking up my daughter one time from school, and I remember her saying, Dad, I learned that life is short, but it's the longest thing you'll ever experience. And I remember hearing that from her, like, and I looked in the back seat, like, what? Like, it was so profound that she said it and how she said it, and so I just remember just smiling, that my daughter just taught me this new saying. And then other things, like when we would go over math, and she would say, well, Dad, I can get to the answer a different kind of way, and she would show me. And again, I'm sitting there just looking at how amazing she is. So there's a lot of stuff that I've learned throughout the years, by just paying attention. So I didn't know. I initially, my impression was that, as a parent, I am the source, right? But if you open yourself up, actually, it can be a two-way street. So that's the surprisingly joyful thing that I've definitely learned in this journey.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I'm not a parent, but it seems like the approach is definitely different in 2021 than it was when we were your daughter's age and younger. What do you think is the biggest difference that you would like to see continue? Like, say, something that your parents did
Mhm.
that maybe parents aren't doing as much now, but you're like, actually, we might be better off if we continued doing some parenting that way.
Something that my parents did that I
Something
would
that your
say,
parents did that you're like, we should continue to do that.
hmm. I think one thing I think that's good is the a bedtime. I know it's kind of like, people might be like, what? But I think bedtime is actually something that's smart. Now I understand that we got a lot of night owls and all that other stuff, but what I think is important is that, especially when we learn this when we get older, right? Is just how important rest is to the overall routine. And it's really a sleeper, because if you rest more, you actually can control weight loss. You rest more, you reduce stress levels. Resting more reduces stress level. Resting more helps out with your blood pressure. Like, there's a lot of stuff that resting do, right? And you learn that, and then you start to get into that space, like 40 years later or something, right? So, but meanwhile, when you were younger, right? If you could actually have some conversation and mix a little bit of old with new, not just, oh, bedtime, but no, actually talk a little bit, give some context to it. I think it's smart because it does help in terms of how you prepare for for your day, how alert you are, blah blah blah. And of course, we're as young kids, we were all forget that whatever. But I think it helps
Anybody
also
got
for
time
your
for a
routine.
nap? There's too much happening. I want to play with my friends. I want to see my show. I want to play my game.
Yeah, and I think that's good. But I think one thing that why that's even more important now is because we never had access to screen time the way that our youth do today. So the most we had is like you came from school and then you had if you did your homework or if you didn't do your homework, it didn't matter. The maximum amount of screen time you had was maybe 4-5 hours, right? Today it's
Maybe.
actually right. Maybe that's real big. But today it's like, the maximum amount of hours that you don't have screen time is about maybe 6 or 7 hours, right? The rest of the time you're on the screen, whether it's now, virtual learning, your phone or whatever. So
Yeah.
so I think it's even more important now. So it'll be interesting to see, the related illnesses or challenges when it comes to like, needing glasses or lack of sleep or stress levels. But I do think that that's probably the number one rule that I would say is an old school rule that I would say is actually that you want to apply today is having some sense of routine when it comes to shutting it down. Right, you may not go to sleep at 9 o'clock or anything like that, but at least getting into this routine of like, you know what, now is the time. Let's take all our phones and all of the the iPads and the learning tabs and all that stuff, and let's put them on the charger. And we literally start to detach from all of that at a certain time in our effort to wind down and kind of reset. Because if anything, one thing that we're also losing is a dimension to ourselves. Like we are so caught up in screens that our ability to relate to one another as individuals, as well as our ability to just communicate without it being in text format or something like that, we're losing that. And I believe that's contributing a long way to our lack of humanity when it comes to other things that are happening in this space.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing all that, for taking a moment to share a bit of your fatherhood journey. Do you want to say a special hello to your young lady? I know she's not a little one anymore, but this would be the time to do your shout out if you have one.
Well, to my princess, I love you very much. You're my why. You already know that all day, and I'm not going to embarrass you no more than that. I'm just going to say that much and then keep it pushing. But I love you so much, and thank you for making me a proud father.
Awesome. Happy Father's Day. Happy early Father's Day to you, Donovan. And tell folks again, do you have all the information in front of you? If not, I can say it. About Juneteenth tomorrow, the celebration. I know you're going to be out there. Where can people go to find more details?
You can go to Juneteenth Phila at
Philly.
I messed it up at Philly. I told. See, I knew I was gonna mess it up. See,
JuneteenthPhilly.org.
There it is. What she said. All right, quick that way. All right.
A mess. Thank you, Donovan. How can people follow you and follow what you have going on social media?
You can catch me on Instagram at Donovan S. West. That's DONAVAN S is in Sam West at Gmail. Right. No, sorry, that's the email. IG is Donovan S. West. All right. And Facebook is Donovan S. West as well. All right. So you can catch me through all that. Email me, IG. Look, it's early. It's early. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
And scene. Thank you, Donovan. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here on the show this morning.
No, thank you for having me.
All right, no problem. And again, for Juneteenth, to find out all about the festivities, go to juneteenthphilly.org. Don't forget, we will be broadcasting live. Michael Cord will be your broadcast host tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Don't touch that dial. We have another fatherhood story coming up right after this.
It's time to play, and COVID-19 vaccines are the way to do it. Now everyone 12 and older is eligible. Take your family and friends because it's time to get back to the good times. Keep listening for vaccine locations near you or text your zip code to 438-829. Message and data rates apply. We can do this. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Solomon Jones. I'm the morning drive host of Wake Up with Word here at WURD Radio in Philadelphia. This time last year, we couldn't go to work, school, church, or even out to eat. We were all separated and trying to be safe at home. People we knew and loved were getting sick and dying from COVID-19. Well, now there's a vaccine. It's safe, it's available, and it's free. Get the vaccine. It's the right thing to do. Think about those who got sick or died. Think about what they would tell you to do. And then do what I did. Get your free COVID-19 vaccine at blackdoctorsconsortium.com.
For the past 10 years, Comcast has been helping students get ready. We've connected 5 million students from low-income families to low-cost, high-speed internet. We're working with both nonprofit partners and city leaders to create over 1,000 Wi-Fi connected lift zones in community centers nationwide. And now we're committing $1 billion to reach 50 million people with the connectivity, skills, training, and the resources they need to succeed in a digital world. Learn more at comcast.com/education.
Remember the last time your family visited the forest? It's a place of wonder and imagination for the whole family, where stories come to life. And it's closer than you think. Ready to plan your next visit? Make the forest part of your story today at a local park near you, or find one at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Source on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
And welcome back to today's edition of The Source. I am Tiffany Bacon. Thank you so very much for joining me today. It is a fantastic Friday. It is the Friday of Father's Day weekend. If you remember back to Mother's Day weekend, we did a really beautiful special highlighting the mother's story. Well, I have to be balanced and equal because today we are highlighting the father's story. If you are a dad out there and you feel like you do not get your just due, we are trying to represent for you in this segment of the program today. There are a lot of amazing dads out there who are doing their thing, who are sacrificing for their children, and they deserve their recognition. And I want to introduce you to one such dad. He is a performer. He is a father. He is an all-around good guy, and he is also a dear friend. Rod Dion is joining us on the program this morning. Hey, Rod, how are you?
I'm well, Tiffany. I'm well. How are you?
I'm breathing on schedule. You know, that's what I like to say.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my goodness. So first and foremost, happy Father's Day to you.
Thank
early.
You. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. So since this is all about the father's story, tell us your journey to fatherhood. Give us your story.
Well, it's a little funny because my journey was a little different. I got my first taste of fatherhood when my mother became legal guardian of my nephew. Cash at the age of 1 year old, and I was 18. So being right there with my mother and my nephew, even though it was like it seemed like a little brother, he definitely gave me son vibes. Everybody thought he was my son, and I carried like he was my son. My actual son, Dion, my firstborn, was born in 97. June 19th, 1997.
Okay.
His birthday tomorrow, Juneteenth. And that's when I officially became a father in 1997.
Woo!
That was my journey. Yeah.
Okay. And I
Yeah.
know you have a young one. You have a little one. Talk about that and how that was to have a new baby with such a great
Yeah.
distance between your first baby.
Right. So like I just said, my journey into fatherhood began on June 19th, 1997. The second phase of fatherhood for me began on August 23rd, 2015, when some 18 years later, my daughter was born. My daughter, Olivia, my sweet potato, as everyone knows that I call her. And just like my son, Olivia is the air I breathe. I call her my bodyguard because she won't let me out of her sight whenever we're out. She's very protective. She's 5,
Oh,
and she'll be 6 in August. And yeah, that's my baby girl.
I love
That's my
it.
baby girl.
I love it. So, talk about just what was going through your mind. I know several parents, fathers and mothers, who've had children with a big gap. What was going through your mind when you found out I'm about to be a daddy again?
What am I doing? Uh, you know, you start talking to yourself like, oh my God, did I really do this? Am I really 18 years later about to start all over again? Um, yeah, it was surreal. And what really made it surreal was, like I said, my daughter was born on August 23rd, 2015. But on August 22nd, 2015, was my firstborn child's first day of college. That was his moving day.
Wow.
Moved into Kutztown University on August 22nd, 2015. August 23rd, 2015, his little sister was born, my daughter.
Ooh.
So
Oh
all my
my
friends,
goodness.
dude, you had one day of freedom. Because you know how when your kids go off to college, it's like, okay, boom, you got an empty nest now. You're good. You
Mhm.
can do your thing. I had that for 24 hours and then
Wow.
started all over again.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So we know that, and you already expressed that she is the love of your life. Both of your children are. But tell us what was your vision or thoughts about fatherhood before you became a father the first time in '97, and how did that change throughout the course of parenting?
Well, if I'm being truthfully honest, I believe my vision for fatherhood was just to be a little more present than my father was in my life. And my father passed last year. God rest his soul. You know, he did what he could do as a father. In terms of what he thought he should be doing. And we came to terms, but long before that, I just always felt like whenever I would have children, no matter what the outcome would be between me and their mother, I would always be there for my child. So I had that made up in my mind well before June 19th, 1997. So when I got there, like it was already set. I felt like I'm prepped for this because I had been mentally preparing for it for so long.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. If you're just tuning in, this is the Friday edition of The Source. I'm Tiffany Bacon. I am speaking with Rod Dion, who is telling us his fatherhood story as we celebrate fathers. Father's Day weekend is this weekend. Father's Day is this Sunday. So we are honoring the dads, those who are natural fathers or those who stepped in to raise someone else's natural child. We salute you this weekend. We salute you today. And we're listening to a fatherhood story to understand from the man's perspective his journey in parenting. So, Rod, everybody knows that there's ups and downs with parenting. There's things that you just don't know how to handle when they first show up, especially when you're dealing with adolescents. Talk
right.
about some of the biggest challenges you had as a parent with your oldest through adolescence, and what is it that your son taught you through that time?
Wow, that's powerful. That's loaded. I was just saying to a friend of mine just the other day that it's crazy how you learn so much from your children. You learn so much about yourself through your children. And I was 27 when I had my first child. And I had about, like I said, I had 9 years kind of training ground with my nephew. However, when my son was born, it was a different dynamic because now I'm totally responsible for this life. And as I began to raise my son along with his mother, it was just the morals, it was the principles, it was the things of family value and structure that I wanted to instill in him. And when you talk about what did he teach me, well, as he began to get into like his double digit years, 10, 11, going into preteen years, and I would say things to him, we would converse, and he would begin to say the things back to me that I had taught him from an early age. And that's seeing the fruit of your labor, just come full circle. And it always made my heart feel good or whatever, because it made me feel like, all right, I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right track. The stuff that I'm saying is sticking. These seeds that I'm planting are now coming to life and coming to fruition or whatever. So, yeah, and my son was always above the curve in terms of his learning in school or whatever, and I thank God for that or whatever. Very articulate. And through that, I was able to learn from him while still teaching him and giving him life gems.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I know that you recently had a very hard loss. And one of the hardest things ever for a parent to go through is the loss of their child. Are you up to and able to talk to us about what happened to your son?
I can, I can touch on it. I can touch on it a little bit. Like I said, June 19th, 97 was my introduction to fatherhood, my son, Dion. And my son lived for 23 and a half years before the Lord decided that his job was well done and it was time to come home. And my son made his transition on December 14th of last year. And it's been quite the road. I can't right now really fully get into the actualities of how he transitioned.
Yeah.
But that is something, whatever, that I would like to, come back to. Like I said, his birthday is actually tomorrow, so and his mother and, a couple other family members are just talking about possibly doing some things just to commemorate. It's still very fresh for us. It's still very surreal. He would have been 24 tomorrow. He would have turned 24 on tomorrow. And yeah, sometimes I still sit at stop signs, waiting for him to turn green because I zone out. I still feel like I'm gonna get that text. I still feel like I'm gonna hear his keys jangling outside of the door, and I hear us and I know that's him, or him pounding on my door, hey dad, can I get $20 real fast, before I'm gonna give it back to you later, stuff like that. It's just a plethora of stuff that I miss about him or whatever, but yeah, but it's one of the most hardest things I've ever had to deal with in my life. I've never thought I would be part of this elite group of individuals that had to bury their child. You're supposed to go before your child. Your child's not supposed to precede you in death. So it's something I'm not even day to day with it yet. I'm moment to moment. Me and you go back to, we have a camaraderie and a friendship. So I feel open talking to you. And outside of that, it's just a man above that's allowed me to even have this conversation right now, this long, and still be okay enough to continue. If you,
yeah. Just know that, while this is a really tough time, you have so much love and support. Talk to us a bit about, some of the ways people have showed up for you and your family and how that has affected you.
Yeah, it's the groundswell of support. Oh man, I'll start with our circle, Tiff. You know, our theatrical circle. You know the vibes of our theatrical family, and you know how we all like we stand up. You know, the village surrounds and embraces and loves and uplifts. And when I say that, you know, I've put posts up on social media about my son, and by the end of the post, I can barely see what I'm writing because it's blurry. You know,
Yeah.
And just the groundswell of support that had just come from a post that I put up.
Yeah.
It's beyond amazing. It's beyond amazing. When I jump into my work family, you know, at my ambulance company that I work for, shout out to Health Fleet Ambulance. They, I have a personal relationship with quite a few of my coworkers, and they will check in with me constantly. You know, hey, what's up, man? You know, how you? And I'll, you know, respond, hey, man, I'm all right. And then they'll lean in like, but how you doing, man? How are you? You know, and I know what that means or whatever. So that swells my heart up. My neighborhood, my block, you know, Alden Street, my Alden World family. These dudes, you know, we go back some 20, 30 years, and the texts, the inboxes, the calls, you know, the FaceTiming, you know, just to check in, you know, it's immeasurable, you know, what it does. And it doesn't have to be a long conversation and everybody's boohooing. It's just like, hey, man, just checking on you. You all right? You good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Want to hear your voice. Let you hear mine. Check out that game tonight, man. I'll call you later. Or, you know, or whatever the case may be. You know, check out the fight tonight. Whatever's going on that night, you know. So, yeah. And then, of course, my actual family, which, of course, my immediate family, we've all been just kind of upholding each other right now as best we can. We all have our moments, and that's when we lean on each other. Sometimes I'm the support beam. Sometimes it's my nephew Cash. Sometimes it's my niece Renee. You know, my mom, the matriarch, is always going to be the support beam for everybody. So yeah, we kind of all take it day. Well, again, not day by day yet, but we still take it moment to moment as best we can.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you have all of that support, and it is so important right now. And the thing that's so hard about the narrative of Black fathers is how often we hear of their absence in their child's life. And when you hear of a father, and there are many, it's not like it's you know,
right.
it's not
We
like
out
this
here.
strange thing. You hear about fathers who were there, who were supportive, who were in their children's lives, and then something tragic happens. It's so great to see the type of support that you're getting and other fathers are getting. Talk for a moment just about how that narrative plays in your mind. How do you respond to the narrative of, oh, you know, Black dads, they just not around?
Well, to that I'll say, you know, look at the numbers. Like, come outside. Like, we're out here. You know, I marvel at how many times I drive down the street and I see a father, you know, holding his daughter and holding another young child's hand, or, you know, I'm walking in the store with my daughter, and as I'm coming to the door, it's another father coming out the door with his child, and we just kind of give each other that knowingly smile, like, hey dad, you know. So it's a feel good thing, whatever, because unfortunately some years ago, and I'll just speak for like our community, our culture, whatever, you know, we didn't see the numbers like we should have seen in terms of a lot of fathers, you know, being what they needed to be, you know. One of my favorite songs, even when I was a youngster, way before I had children, was by Ed O.G. and the Bulldogs. Be a father to your child.
Yep.
Be a father to your child. And that meant so much to me. And that he seemed so earnest when he was saying it. It wasn't just like, I'm going to make this hip hop rap song. Like, no, like, be a father to your child, you know. And that was always my my mantra, you know, once I had children, whatever. So
yeah.
Did I answer your question? I feel like I veered off. Did I answer your question? I'm sorry, sis.
No, it's fine. I wanted to know how you. It is all good. This is your fatherhood journey, and that's what I'm interested in hearing about your journey. And so, yeah, you know, if there's a song or a theatrical piece or, some piece of pop culture that kind of speaks to that, then sure, insert it, ain't nothing but a thing over here. So when you're hearing still that narrative after you said, like, just look around, see how many men are out here with their babies, with their children, holding their hands. You see, our timelines on social media are flooded with graduation pictures, and you see the dads in the picture hugging their sons and daughters and all of that. When you still hear people pushing that narrative, what do you say to them, if anything at all?
I just say, like, you're wrong. Like, the statistics say it. I have friends that work in places that I get direct statistics from, even downtown, like in family court or whatever, I myself have had times in my life when I've had to go down there for, various reasons or whatever. And the amount of dads that are down in family court that's filling out paperwork for their children, that's like fighting to, have their parental rights, and this is no put down to mothers out here, whatever, who are the backbone of our community or whatever, and who will stand tall. And shout out to every single mother out here. Shout out to every step mother out here. Shout out to every, grandmother out here, whatever, that's raising their children, they're raising their grandchildren for their children, so, like, far be it for me to ever, say anything remotely close to anything derogative toward any mother out here that's handling their business. But it just needs to be a little more light shed on fathers out here, because we really are out here. All of my friends, like, I don't have a friend that has a child that's not in their life. I just don't. And that's something I'm proud about. I'm proud of that. I have cousins that have multiple children. I have friends that have multiple children. Everyone's there, even if they're not married, even if they're not in a relationship with the mother, they're there for their child, and I applaud them. And it just needs to be a little more light shed to it. So thank you. I thank you for this platform. Thank you for having me on to kind of, stand proxy, for other fathers out here that's doing what I'm doing and more, because it's just not enough light shed, but if a father comes in, does something, wrong or illegal or in a bad light, oh, that's on 3, 6, and 10, immediately, but a father, and that's a funny dynamic too, because it's like I was about to say, if it's a father that's doing everything they're supposed to do, you don't see a story about that. At the same time, I take all the accolades about my fatherhood and how I raise my children and how I am with my daughter and everything. But at the same time, it's a little weird sometimes because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So if I'm receiving all these accolades and acting like, okay, yeah, I'm doing something above and beyond, like, no, I'm really not. But again, this goes back to what you said about that narrative of fathers not being present. And because of that, when you see a father that is present, it's like, whoa, you're really in your kid's life. Like, whoa, that's good. I see you. I like that. So, but I like to be that example. People have said, even people in our circle, shout out to Walter Shields. Just said something on one of my comments the other day. It was like, he just said something like, thanks for being an example. But I knew what he meant, and he himself is an example as a stand-up father, as a stand-up, black man. So.
Awesome. Hey, listen, don't go anywhere. I have to take a break. But when we come right back, we're going to hear more from Rod Dion and his fatherhood story as we celebrate fathers on this Father's Day weekend. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
(201) Germantown Avenue. The Arpeggio Jazz Ensemble and lyricist and author Nina Lyrespect Ball will give voice to the power of creativity in meeting the social and political challenges of our times. For more information and to purchase tickets, visit woodmereartmuseum.org.
The Black Words Book Club.
Word Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The Black Words book for July is White Evangelical Racism, The Politics of Morality in America by Penn's Dr. Anthea Butler. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Tafina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, July 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for Word members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Dafina. Dafina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
Undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
You're listening to The Source with Tiffany Bacon on Word Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the Word Radio app.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to this Friday edition of The Source here on Father's Day weekend. It is also Juneteenth weekend, so there's a lot going on in the city and there's a lot to celebrate. I'm Tiffany Bacon. Thank you so much for joining me. This segment is all about the father's story. We are hearing from Father Rod Dion, who is joining us in the segment today. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for being here to tell your story of fatherhood. So
Thank you for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. So let's talk about, you alluded to a very hard time that you dealt with in 2020, in addition to what else was going on in the world. But talk about how the events outside of that affected you, not just as a man, But as a parent, all that went down in 2020, from coronavirus to civil unrest, the uprisings, to the crazy political climate that we've endured for a number of years, how did that affect you as a man and as a parent?
I would say tremendously in both regards. If I start with, I'll start with the civil unrest or whatever, because that's something that still kind of bubbles in my soul like a cauldron. I still have my. It's funny. I had a T-shirt on yesterday with 846 on it. Rest in peace, George Floyd. Like I said, my son transitioned in December, so that leaves me with my youngest, my 5-year-old. And while me and my son absolutely had conversations about the civil unrest and whatever, and about everything that meant, and even him being 23 years old or whatever, I still was very concerned with him being out here in these streets or whatever. So it heightened my sense of parenthood. It heightened it. But in terms of like the civil unrest or whatever, even with that, it heightened it because, my son had size. I'm 6'3", 240. My son is like 6'4", 260. So he's a large black male. And that's kind of all you have to be a super target out here, whatever. So seeing that happen with George Floyd and various others as well, it's a trigger. Like, I see these things happen and I get immediately nervous for my son, even my nephew, who's 9 years older than my son. I fear for his safety as well. So it heightens my parenthood in terms of the civil unrest because of my concern and sometimes even fear of what could happen to one of my children, my nephew, my little nephew, my cousins, or anyone. And again, having a 5-year-old daughter and making her understand that all police aren't bad. Some police have done some things that weren't the best things to do and were flat out bad. Yes. But all police aren't bad. She sees a police car drive by wearing a car. She's like, oh, that's police. That's the police. That's how she used to say it. Police, the police. Oh, man, that's police. The police is going to come. Are they going to get us? Are they going to get us? And I'm like, wow, it's so crazy. She said, because like, what they did to George Floyd. And I'm like, so it's heavy. So it makes the burden of parenthood that much more burdensome, and especially when you have younger children. So it definitely changed and heightened my awareness of what I'm saying and how I'm reacting to stuff, and really trying to break it down to her on a level where she can understand. In terms of the coronavirus, same thing. I'm not a germaphobe, but way before the virus, if we're out and me and my daughter and she has to go to the bathroom, she's little, I'm not sending her in the women's bathroom. I'm taking her in the men's bathroom with me. We're going to the back stall, you know what I'm saying? And I'll take my little girl to the bathroom. But I'm like, wait, don't touch nothing. I got it. Wait a minute. No, don't touch that. I got it. Wait, lift her up, let her do a thing, put it back down. Let her wash her hands. But now it's even more so because it's like, it's germs, Liv. We can't go to certain things. We can't go to Chuck E. Cheese and jump in the balls in the pit. You know what I mean? The kids love to jump into it just because it's not safe, and I gotta make her understand that we can't go to the playground because daddy's gonna be out there like a basket case every time you slide on a sliding board, somebody else slide. I'm gonna want to wipe it down again. Like, I legit, the first time I took her to the playground after like maybe 6 or 7 months of the pandemic, I legit went around and Tiff, I had a grocery bag with some peroxide wipes. I had several pairs of gloves. I had some spray. I had hand sanitizer, and I think just like some water, whatever. But I was fully equipped to, before she gets on this swing, I'm wiping it down, and the chains. She got to hold the chains. I'm wiping everything down. So in terms of that, it kind of turned me into somewhat of a germaphobe, which I never was. But this virus now, whatever, I'm nervous about it. And me being an EMT and working on the front line myself, I have to be on top of these things, whatever. Like, how can I not? It's my job to be on top of what the CDC is talking about in terms of protocol and safety measures and things of that nature. So I think, to answer your question, it kind of heightened everything in terms of, and then in me as a man, I think that was the other part of your question. The way it changed me as a man, that was all my parents, but the way it changed me as a man, back to the civil unrest, I too, look, I'm totally, the days are behind me. When I was younger, yeah, maybe my work wasn't right, in my car, my paperwork wasn't right, or something wasn't right, my license wasn't right or something, but I don't play them games now. Fully grown. Everything is right in my car. All my credentials are correct. But if a patrol car pops up in my rearview mirror, it sort of does something to me. I'm not saying I get nervous or I get scared or whatever, but it kind of does something to me. You kind of just get on guard for whatever, so that's a uneasy feeling, and then they'll pull from behind me, pull next to me, and then the glare into the car, so I would look back and then they'll just peel off. And it's like, just for that moment, you feel like this could get confrontational out of nowhere, because we've seen it happen so many times. So in terms of me, how to change me as a man, my keeping my head on a swivel, my being very aware of my surroundings, my movements. If I am pulled over by a policeman, okay, license, registration, insurance. All right, officer, that's in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for that to get that. All right, is that okay? Cool. Your partner over here in the passenger side, it's cool too. All right, cool. I'm having these conversations, so it in turn, of course, heightens my awareness as well. But it's a thing. I just don't like the uneasiness of it. So it's about that balance, because when it comes to the window, I don't want to seem confrontational. At the same time, I'm uneasy. So, so I think that's how those things have changed me as a parent, as well as a man. As far as the corona, I'm just super careful in what I do. I cut down my visits to my house. I cut down the places that I go. Much more aware of what I do. Touch of the arm. We do the arm thing. It's just I'm just super aware. My mother, is about to turn 76 in 2 months.
All right,
yeah. I'm around her. I'm around my daughter. I got to be careful who I'm around. So it makes me that much more aware as well, and cognitive of my surroundings. So it's changed. That's how it plays me. Yeah.
It seems like the diaper bag and the play bag just got a whole lot heavier in 2020 because of all the extra things you have to add to it in preparation.
Right. It really did.
In preparation. Talk a bit about, let's get a little nostalgic for a second.
Right.
Talk about the things that you were taught as a child that you feel are obsolete to teach now to your daughter.
The things that I was taught as a child, some of the most basic things, respecting your elders, listening.
Those are obsolete? Like nobody's teaching that no more? Or they're not relevant?
No. I'm starting off with the basic, whatever. I know the things that aren't, I feel as though aren't being taught. It's just like family structure and family values. Like for instance, when I was little coming up, eons ago, it was a dinner time at my house. We knew at 5:30 we're all around the table. Excuse me, my mother, my older brother, and my dad. The four of us, we're there. There's no you come and grab something and run to the upstairs back room, and the other one come grab something and run to the basement, and this one grabs something and run to his room. No. We're all eating together. We're going to talk about our day. We're going to say prayer over the food. We had to say a scripture verse after the prayer. Those kind of things I feel as though are obsolete. Not so much even like the prayer thing and the scriptures and everything, because everybody has their own set of religious values that they follow. But I think just the coming together as a family, if we all still had that just at least once a day, I think it changes the dynamic of a lot of things, because you have that. That was solace. Like that felt good to me. You know what I'm saying? It was, as a kid, like first like, oh, we got to do this again. But as I got older, I dug it. I looked forward to the coming around the table, you know. And then as I got even older into my late teens, it kind of just dissipated, you know what I mean? But yeah, I had that as a child, you know. Church was mandatory every Sunday. Oh, we're in church, you know. That was mandatory. These are things that I grew up, you know, the doctrines that I grew up under. So I try to instill as much of these in my daughter as I possibly can. And I think those things are kind of obsolete from our community in general. You know what I mean? Not totally, but I don't see it as much as I did at one point.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's so funny that you brought that up, because I immediately had a memory of the same thing happening in my home. And then it just seemed it changed in the 80s. And you just said it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just said, when you're late teens, you know, not to give up all the tapes, but you're an Xer like I am, you know, so that meant you spent some of your teens in the 80s. It just a little bit, but it just seemed like that's when, for whatever reason, that's when we turned that corner of the family eats together. And I distinctly remember dinner's ready, everybody grabbing their plate and going to their TVs. It wasn't just like, it's like, I'm going to my television to watch my program. No longer we're sitting at the table. What happened today? How was school? You know,
how was work?
I ran into your Aunt Seal, you know, or whatever. It was, you don't know nothing about Aunt Seal right now unless you call. From your recollection, what do you think it was that happened? What was the significance for you in the 80s that turned that corner on the family? And you also mentioned that your dad was present too, which is, you know, kind of tying it back into, you know, the fatherhood story, the presence, the connection, the togetherness, you know.
Right. Yeah, no, my father was present up until I was about 9 years old, before, you know, him and my mother decided, you know, to, you know, kind of see things from different angles. But in terms of like what kind of set it off in the 80s, Tiff, it's hard to say. Like, because I don't think, like, I have like cousins and family in New York. I have family down south. I have family in Jersey. I have family, you know, in the Midwest or whatever. And it's not like it was just here, you know, like it kind of dissipated, like kind of across the board, you know, seemed like whatever, like everybody's kind of got away from it. And I know for me in my set neighborhood and community, whatever, here in Philly, in my city and where I'm from, the 80s was like, you know, bubbling over with, you know, certain epidemics, you know, certain street things that was happening or whatever that was really kind of taking over the news and taking over all the talks of the neighborhood, all the talks at the barbershop and the beauty salons, all the talks in school or whatever, you know. It was about, yo, you hear what happened last night on such and such block with such and such person, you know, and it became that. And you know, just, you know, I'll say it, you know, just the drug epidemic, I mean, you know, of the 80s. And yeah, I can't put my finger on it, but I think you're correct that, yeah, around that time or whatever, you know, we kind of both said the same thing, mid to late 80s, just kind of like dissipating. We just kind of got away from it, you know, on a whole. I don't know. I would love to do more research on that, though, to kind of see if I can pinpoint, because it's something that we just kind of looked up one day and was like, wow,
it's different. Right.
It's different. Yeah.
It just stopped. Or even, I know in my family, we definitely had like, we would have Sunday dinner at Nana's house, or, you know, stuff like that. It's even seemed that the visiting of the extended family, those who they're close, but they don't live in your home, even those visits dissipated. You know, and it seemed in the 70s and early 80s, we spent a lot more time with folks in person.
No, we did. Well, back then, of course, we didn't have the social media that we have now, which I think has also helped to, of course, that was well past the 80s, whatever, but well, not well past, we were talking about MySpace. I mean, that was maybe late 80s.
No, that 90s. Was, well, MySpace was way after. That was the 2000s.
Way after. That's what I thought. Okay, cool. Right. Yeah.
I mean, you
talking to somebody who only been on Facebook for like 9 years, okay?
We didn't even have the internet.
Right.
If you had a computer at home, you were rich.
You were doing it. You were doing it. Yeah, exactly.
You had money.
Exactly. You're right. So yeah, so we didn't have all of that or whatever like the kids have today or whatever. So we had each other. You know what I'm saying? Like that was our entertainment. Like we want to find out what's going on about talking to mom and dad or the siblings talking to each other, you know, or we go outside and sit on the porch and then all the neighbors and your friends talk to each other outside and swap stories about stuff that happened or whatever. So yeah, I would love to see it come back to that, just like some grassroots kind of stuff from back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, I think it would make it would make a difference. It would change the dynamic in certain instances.
Yeah. Going to take a break in a second. I just want to put this out to you first. I want you to think about it. If you could take a snapshot of a father in the 70s and 80s when you were young and take a snapshot of a father today, what would be in that photo? What would be the quintessential image of a father from back in the day versus the quintessential image of a father today? So think about that. I'm gonna let you stew on that for a second. We are continuing our celebration of Father's Day, hearing a father's story here on the Friday edition of The Source. Please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with more conversation after this. Welcome back to the Friday edition of The Source. It's me, Tiffany Bacon, saying thank you so much for joining me this morning. Thank you for being a part of the show. We are speaking with Rod Dion, who is a friend and a father, as we continue to celebrate Father's Day and hearing a father's story. So right before the break, Rod, I asked you this question. If you could take a snapshot of the quintessential father back in the 70s and 80s when you were a young buck, a young bull,
right? Young ball.
versus the snapshot of a father today, what would be in that photo? What is the quintessential father then versus the quintessential father now?
I would say, if I would have to do that, that's such a super cool question. So you always like to answer to make people think.
That's what I do.
Thought provoking, thought invoking. Okay. As I blatantly stall for more seconds. No. I think that
I know it's not an easy question. I know.
I like that though, because it makes the wheels spin. If I would say like right now, like without like taking like eons of time to like come with something. Because I would probably, it might change, but like if I were to say it right now, I would say in the 80s, the quintessential photo in my mind of what a father would be. Actually, I'm gonna do 70s. I'm gonna do 70s. I'm gonna do late 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. The quintessential father. This may sound funny, but the quintessential father of what a father would be back then would be John Amos. John Amos, who played the father on Good Times.
Good Times. Okay.
On Good Times. Now, when I say the reason why I chose him, like I said, I mean, like this could change. Like you asked me this in an hour, my two photos may change. The reason why I would say John Amos though is because he, for me, epitomized just what a father was. Like he was big, he was strong, he was rough, he was rugged, but he loved heavy. And even though he might kind of chomp down on family members from time to time or whatever, for whatever reason, don't let anybody even act like they want to cross a line in terms of any of his family members, because he wasn't having it. He absolutely wasn't having it or whatever. And just hard worker, going home to bring home the bacon, support the family. When you see him, he looks rugged. He looks like he's worked all day or whatever. That would be quintessential father back then. I would say the other half of that picture for a quintessential father for today in 2021 would look like a cross between myself, and I'm gonna break each one down across, and I'm gonna break down the other cross. Myself, because I'm in a baseball hat. I got a EMT shirt on. I like hip hop. I like to drive fast, whatever. But I'm also super, super, super about my children. I'm super about Sesame Place and learning and making sure that I teach values and things like that. And just looking at me, one might not think, and that's another reason why I think that people don't know about the fathers being out here, because there's so many out here that look regular like me and may think, oh, that's just some guy who works over there, or he's some street guy or whatever, not knowing the depths of fatherhood that I hold dear and near. So I would say a cross between me and I can't think of his name. I'm thinking of it's an actor, and I see him. He's suited and booted. But I'll just say suited and booted accountant, tax official, white collar. You understand what I'm saying? Like businessman, business owner. Cleaned up. You know what I'm saying? Like people underneath them. I mean, employees. I see that. I see entrepreneurship today in that picture of what today's quintessential father would be. Want to have their own and build a legacy. Not to say that the James Amos, quintessential fathers of the old wouldn't want to build a legacy, but it was more about just supporting right then and there. I think the quintessential father of today, like myself, are like the white collar suit and tie father. They want to have their own and build a legacy, have something to leave behind. So those would be what would be in my pictures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I was just very curious about what that image looks like to you, because there's a lot of change in image that's happening right now. Even before 2020 was what it was, we were changing the dynamic. We were changing what it looks like, what it means to be a dad. Let me take you back in the Wayback Machine for a minute. If you remember that movie, Mr. Mom, back in the 80s, for that time period, for a man to be the one at home taking care of the kids was like, what? Because we were still deeply stuck in gender roles and what a woman should do and what a man should do. And,
absolutely,
your manhood is questioned if you're doing certain things, all that stuff. Now we're in a space where men are really gravitating more to a softer approach, an approach that's more loving and understanding. How do you feel about that, especially since you have a young girl, a daughter, what are your thoughts about the adjustment in the image? Seeing the videos on TikTok or Instagram of the fathers doing the baby girl's hair, putting the barrettes in, and or messing it all the way up because they're like, I just don't know how mommy does this, or getting it right, like, oh snap, baby girl looks great. She's ready for school. You know, your thoughts about these new approaches, because John Amos was not touching Thelma's hair under any circumstance.
No, he wasn't. No, he absolutely wasn't. Absolutely wasn't. Again, part of that quintessential today's father, that's me. Because, you know, I got my 3 daddy puffs. I got my 2 daddy puffs. I got my daddy bun that I put my daughter's hair. I can part, you know, I can do these things. No, I think that, yeah, I think that those things are, wait, I want to answer this succinctly. Give it to me one more time, Tiff. I'm sorry. Give it to me one more time.
Right. Your thoughts about that, you know, the change in the image of the father, of the strong father, to say, yeah, I can and will and happily do my daughter's hair. Or if she wants to play baby dolls, I'll sit there and, you know, we'll pull out the, you know, Barbies or whatever and go to town, and I'm still dad. And we still are tight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's important. I mean, I think it's an absolute necessity. You have to just get on their level. You know, you have to, whatever. And yeah, no, I think having a softer side, you know, like where I came up at, and you know, the neighborhood I came up in, and things that I've been through in my life, whatever, I mean, has built a certain exterior on me that doesn't really allow me to, you know, show a certain side, but so much, whatever. I carry the way I carry. But when it comes to my daughter, like, nah, it's whatever. You know, you have to show that softer side. You know, you have to like my daughter, like wanted to, you know, paint her toenails a couple weeks ago, whatever, you know, and I said, all right, Liv, all right, go ahead and paint them. She painted them, and she was like, well, I'm finished. I'm like, all right, cool. She was like, can I paint yours now? Yeah, Liv. Yeah, go ahead. You know what I'm saying? Can I do any color I want to? Yes, go ahead. And I legit had like toenail paint, I mean, for like probably like weeks. I mean, like showering like daily, trying to scrape it up, and it's just not coming off. It was like traces of it. It was still there weeks later. So I think that's very important to be able to show that softer side. And not just to your daughters, but to your little boys. If I had a son that was 5 years old going on 6, you're still a big man. You're a giant to a 5-year-old. So you have to come down and be smaller. You know, you have to be a little soft. You have to make your voice a little softer. Everybody always talks about my voice. Right, I heard you before I seen you. You know, so when I talk to my daughter, I bring it down. I change the decibels, you know, and it's a softer tone, you know, and she relates to it, you know. So I think it's an absolute necessity to have a softer side. And this isn't about anything about your masculinity or anything, you know, but I think it's important. And in today's climate, again, not to just overuse the word, but it's such a necessity.
Yeah. Before we close out this segment, I have to ask you this. What have you taught your children that you wish your parents taught you?
I've taught my children to don't mince words, whatever. Like my mom wanted, we had an open line of communication. I mean, absolutely. But I think just if I would take a tidbit of that and add on to something what my mom taught us, it would be like not to mince words. Like, I don't care what kind of words I mean, not outside of expletives, of course. You're not just going to use, you know, foul language, but I'm saying I don't care how you express yourself or whatever. Just express yourself. My mom wanted us to express ourselves, but it was like, all right, wait, watch your tone. Don't say it like that. Who you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And like sometimes that would get in the way of an expressive moment. And I don't ever want to do anything whatever's going to get in the way of whatever. I mean, you know, not saying, look, and my mom's method was great. I mean, it worked. I mean, like, you know, here we are, here I am, you know, I'm good. You know, so but if I would add something onto that method that she didn't, and I would add on to mine, that would probably be just that little tidbit. Just to, you know, speak your mind. Don't mince words, just say it. Don't dance around trying to find the perfect word to say. No, just say it. Just let me hear it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rod Dion. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule today to share your fatherhood story, for being brave enough to share the parts of it that are hard, and being open enough to share the parts that take you down memory lane, whether you wanted to go down there or not. I truly appreciate it. And if you want to give a shout out to your baby girl and any family members, this would be the time to do that.
Absolutely, whatever. Of course, shout out to my immediate family, the matriarch, Brenda, my nephew, like I said earlier, Renee, my baby nephew, Amari, my niece Renee, and my other baby niece, Dakota. It's a lot of us, Designy, it's just a whole lot of us, whatever. Earlier when I was mentioning people that have been reaching out to me and calling, I didn't mention my BFF, my bestest friend forever, Donna Bella Marie, super close friend of mine. We're 1 month apart. I was born June 13th. She was born July 13th. And we've been friends now for just about 38 years. Right. So yeah, we come from the sandbox. Yeah, we go way back. We go back. How far are we going back?
You go back like Cracker Jack.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But no, and last but not least, shout out to you. Shout out to you for the opportunity. Shout out to Kay. Shout out to Kay Bellamy. This has been a blast. Thank you. Like, we need more platforms like this, whatever. I love seeing stuff like this. Like, I hope people look at this and be like, I can relate. This was cool. Because I will watch something like this, like from the beginning to the end, just because of what the subject is about, and I think I look like somebody people could relate to. I don't know.
Yeah, you really are. You really are. Thank you, Rod Dion. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right, don't touch that dial. We will be right back with more conversations right after this. And welcome back to this Friday edition of The Source. This is one of my favorite segments of the show. It's called Stage Door, where I get to do this thing with one of my favorite people, Mr. Jeffrey Page. Hey, Jeffrey, how you doing?
What's happening, Tiffany? What's going on with you?
I'm breathing on schedule. How you doing?
You know, I'm good. I'm in Japan, and,
and look at you, world traveler.
I feel like I'm like, what day is it? What's the hour? What's the minute? I don't understand what's happening right now in my life.
Yeah, so it's crazy time for you because you're what, 12, 13 hours ahead of us?
I'm 11. See, that's the thing, is I'm not a perfect 12. So it's like I'm not over. So I'm not 13. I'm 11 hours, I believe. And so you know, you get a time, and you like for instance, if it's like a 6 o'clock time in the States, it's not 6 o'clock in the here. It's like a little off. So you're like, oh my God, did I miss something? I think that I missed something. I know that I missed something. Oh my God. So I'm doing really good. I'm directing and choreographing a new show here in Tokyo with a production company called Hurry Pro. So it's going well. It's going well. So we rocking it and we rolling.
I love it. I love that technology allows us to still talk, even though you are thousands and thousands of miles away.
Exactly. I'm like, this is amazing. This is wonderful. Look at us, technology.
I know. Ain't it
How are you, Tiffany? I miss you so much. But I just spoke to you last week, so I shouldn't be missing you like this.
It's okay. You're a world away, and that's all right. I miss you too. We're doing the doggone thing. Last Friday we had a break because we were broadcasting live from Fresh Grocer. It was our first live broadcast in over a year. So Philly is like officially open and people are coming out. So big shout out again to all the folks who came out to say hi, who signed up for our membership drive, who are now members of WURD. We appreciate you so very much. But Jeffrey, you know what? Our special guest today is someone you know very well. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to introduce him to our WURD listeners, because I know just by reading his bio that he's pretty fabulous and he does a lot of amazing things. So who do we have with us today?
So today we have Daryl Cuba, and Daryl Cuba is a thinker. He's an activist. He's a protest. He is a business. He's a businessman. He is he's all things, everything. And so for the last couple of weeks, a friend of mine, Miriam Grill, she introduced us, and for a few weeks we would all kind of get together and just kind of like have like coffee, like Zoom coffee on Mondays, and we would like talk about everything under the sun. And so he's at Harvard right now, and he's leading such magnificent or he's opening such magnificent ways at Harvard with respect to race politics and whatnot. and I figured that he would be a really, really great person to have on the show, since of course we're dealing with, the intersections of art, culture, and all things race politics. So he's a pretty awesome dude. He's super smart. I always enjoy speaking with him. I'm also leading this thing at Harvard on the legacy of slavery, and he as well is doing something at Harvard with respect to that. And then the intersections of art and what it is to be politically active at Harvard and the legacy of slavery. He's like all things that dude. I like that, right? He's all things that dude.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to introduce Mr. Daryl Cuba to Stage Door.
Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, Daryl, did I mess up your introduction? Please tell me what I messed up.
Oh, that was too good, actually. I just got to hire you as my publicist. So.
Okay. Is that what they say? Okay. How's it going, man? How are you?
It's going good. Still in Cambridge, soaking up the last sort of few weeks of graduation parties, and looking at all the different things we got to do. It's good, man. Things are good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Like I was telling Tiffany, I'm in Japan right now. I'm working on a project. So I'm pretty good. And I'm also like juggling. It's interesting. I'm juggling what's happening in the States and also what's happening here in Japan, and it's a little crazy. But tell me, so you're at Harvard right now. You're about to finish your program. Can you tell me about the program? Tell me where you are at the program. Tell me how you feel about it. Again, this airs in Philadelphia, so Philadelphia has an active, politically sound, community in Philadelphia. So let us know what's happening with that and all of that stuff.
Well, I mean, the program I'm finishing up here at Harvard is the Kennedy School's mid-career Master of Public Administration, the MCMPA program. We were actually graduated May 27th, I think, and there's been 2 weeks that we all have been sort of celebrating in person because this year was online and virtual for all of us. And this is a 1-year program for mid-career, leaders. So this year we were able to do quite a bit of work around anti-racism. A bunch of us started the anti-racism working group, which led to the Anti-Racism Policy Journal. And we were just hired, a few of us were hired by the Kennedy School to create a sort of anti-racist leadership stream for the mid-career summer program, which all mid-careers go through, called the Just Leadership Program. So those are the things I've been sort of busy with at this moment. But yeah, this year sort of because it was virtual and because it was all Zoom, we sort of all had to deal with all of the different things happening in the world. But usually the mid-careers, it could be kind of cliquish, right? And, sort of do our own things. But this year afforded us the opportunity to really get some ground on anti-racist policies and initiatives.
Awesome. So the publication that you recently told me about, and I think you just told the world about, or Philadelphia about, that's Just Leadership, right?
Well, that's the mid-career program we were just hired to create. The publication is the Anti-Racism Policy Journal, which supposedly Harvard's telling us is the first of its kind in the world. There's no other anti-racist policy journal. And what we're, seeking to do is to explore the history of race and racism and colonialism and anti-racism and anti-colonialism as it sort of intersects with policy. And that's what we're buried in the ground, working to do.
So what is the Anti-Racist Policy Journal about? What's the goal of it? What are you hoping to do with it? And how does it move forward?
So the goal is to again, be like yet another space where we can talk about anti-racism and policy, right? And talk about racism and policy. What we found this year, particularly within our cohort, about 180 people, was that many people didn't know anything about racism or anti-racism. I think, as you've been probably aware of the last few weeks, there's been a national conversation about that. And so we sought to fill the gaps, particularly being policy people, being public administration and public policy, a public policy school. We thought we would create a space where, we can promote rigorous and informed policy dialogue that's relevant to, the current and future issues of governance, economics, politics, and society on the subject of racism and anti-racism. So we're looking to publish thought-provoking content that provides fresh insights into the most significant opportunities and challenges facing anti-racist policy.
Now, go ahead, Tiffany. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that's really awesome, and I'm very curious just about your journey to this place. Like, think about you told us off mic that you graduated from my alma mater, Temple University. TU, and you know the rest. We ain't gonna say it because we on air. Jeffrey's like, what is the rest? We'll tell you off air. But if it's okay if I say when you graduated, is that okay? If I say I don't want to put it out there, if you don't want me to put it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you said you graduated in 2005. So talk to me about your thought process around race, racism, and policy between graduation to now and how it has changed.
Oh, wow. So I was raised in a small town in the Virginia Tidewater, a town called Gloucester. And my parents were, I guess, the crunchy bit before it was, sort of in vogue. So we didn't really have TV or watch a lot of TV. Very much, busy people, get out of the house, but we read a lot. So to me, my best friend lived on the campus of Hampton University. His parents worked there. And, William and Mary was right like across the river. So that was the environment I grew up in. So Temple was the #1 school for diversity in the Princeton Review in like 1999 or 2000 when I was, making my final decisions. And, all my first 18 years, I was aware, as I think all of us are, if you're growing up Black or person of color in America, that, whiteness and white supremacy is so systemic, so embedded in our culture that, that it's a problem. So I kind of thought that diversity was the answer, right? And so that's why I ended up at Temple. I actually spent 5 years at Temple. I was came in as like economics, political science, philosophy, but switched to theater in my senior year, took extra year to finish it, and immediately started working on a Harvard program called the MLK program, which sought to turn many inner city community centers that were serving Black and brown kids into sort of like a Jewish school, a version of a Jewish school, right? Of the Hebrew schools that the Jewish community has for their kids. So it was run by Dr. Henry Louis Gates, who had come up with this curriculum that, what was the curriculum was W.B. Du Bois. No, there was a curriculum. God, I'm old. 15 years ago, Harvard and Skip Gates had come up with a great curriculum that we were sort of trying to get taught in these sort of community centers. And I ended up being the director, the regional director for Philadelphia. I had interned for Art Sanctuary doing my college, my undergraduate career, and with people like Lorene Carey and all that sort of community. Was really like an activist sort of art literature world. I was a theater major, and I saw that through storytelling you could really tackle a lot of these problems. So I ended up bouncing around in media and found myself writing for Vice on the topic of race and technology in 2015. One of my pieces won a feature of the year at Vice, and the comments were so racist that Vice turned off all of its comments across the board. And, Vice had positioned itself as sort of the liberal, progressive, edgy, I guess, millennial space. And so when all that happened, and all this, and I was doxxed, I was living in New York behind gates, so I wasn't that worried, but that anxiety from being doxxed, from just the horrible comments that people can write about, stuff like this, made me realize that, no matter how individual people are, if there's no systemic or institutional change, then none of this, was going to end. And I'd always been taught by my parents and family that race, had no scientific, genetic, or biological basis. And I guess in those 10 years from 2005 to 2015, when that article was published, I started to realize that the rest of the country, at least, wasn't that caught up on the fact that, race is not real racism is, but scientifically, genetically, biologically, there's no such thing as race. Race was a social, economic, political sort of weapon created by the colonial elite to convince, the lower class Europeans to come work in the colonies around the world by promising them, whiteness and a higher rung of whiteness. So that next year, I ended up at the New York Times. They were working on the race-related, which became a newsletter. And so I was sitting in on, the different conversations that were going on around this at the New York Times, and just sort of like stunned that even the New York Times sort of editors and journalists didn't really know much about race, and much less that it was all made up. It had no, again, scientific, genetic, or biological basis. So me and a friend had been bouncing ideas about like what to do about this. Him and his wife were about to have a baby. They were white, and but still perturbed because this was the rise of Trump. And so we came up with this idea of hacking racism. I just written this article at Vice about tech and race. The New York Times was launching Race Related. And we ended up at the Columbia Business School Incubator in 2017, incubating this idea of hacking racism, which sort of became an idea to highlight people that were doing the work to dismantle systemic, institutional, structural racism. Now, at a party on campus, as stuff happens, it was actually the 200th year anniversary of HarperCollins. I ran into these people from the Oral History Masters of Arts program at Columbia, and ended up starting a program in oral history at Columbia. And my thesis was the freedom colonies, the international phenomenon of freedom colonies. Now, freedom colonies are spaces throughout the world that resisted colonialism. You might have heard of them as Maroons in Jamaica, Palenques in Colombia, Macabos and Quilombos in Brazil. Across sort of the North American continent, there were like all these black settlements. Some were just communities, that only the community knew about. Others grew into town, like Zero Neale Hurston's Eatonville in Florida, or Mound Bayou in Mississippi. And I just wanted to sort of tell that story. I pitched it to the New York Times, and they were like, "Give me a personal essay." And I was just like, "Personal essay?" But anyway, that grew into this project that I was calling Mapping Freedom, because I wanted to map all of these spaces around the world. So I just started to plot them on Google Maps. And as I started to reach out to these communities, they were happy to talk about their stories, but I learned that they had a lot of asks. They wanted things. They needed resources. They needed preservation and conservation and restoration sort of strategies to help preserve their communities. Many of these spaces, particularly in the U.S., have been decimated by highways. There was Professor Dr. Andrea Roberts, who had started the Texas Freedom Colonies Project in Texas, and she found over 500 of these communities in Texas. And again, they needed resources, they needed help. So I ended up being recommended by a friend to attend the Harvard Kennedy School's mid-career MPA program to figure out like how to put together a public-private partnership that will help, to bring these communities together and work on some sort of like lobbying to the UN. A dream was to have the UN World Heritage or UNESCO create a World Heritage Freedom Colonies Trail. So that's what I was supposed to be doing here this year. But COVID happened, George Floyd happened, Black Lives Matter happened, and me and my 165, 170 mid-career world leaders, so we have amazing people from all around the world, devolved into craziness because there's many people who didn't want us to even talk about race on the WhatsApp, channel that we had created for the program since it was Zoom. And I said I was not going to be that black guy going to Harvard talking about race, but it just so happened that we really had an inability. I'm not going to say we. Certain people, the usual suspects, had an inability to talk about race, and a bunch of us got together to start this thing we call the Anti-Racism Working Group, where we would meet every week, like on a weekly Zoom, and try to hash out some of these discussions or some of these issues. But the chats, a few people still didn't want to talk about these things, and we're very vocal about civility and all this, white fragility stuff, tone policing, respectability politics. So I was like, we're not going to do this among grown people. And I launched a digital Black Lives Matter protest, where every day I bombarded the chat for about an hour with like 25 to 50 different scholarly articles, tweets, all kinds of content about racism and anti-racism and white supremacy. And then that led to a bunch of, the chat blew up. I got, vilified, and I was made a hero by other people. But when the insurrection happened, we were all watching it on break. And that's when we decided, like, we need a space where we can highlight scholars that have been talking about these things. Kimberly Crenshaw, Derek Bell had already sort of made scholarship for decades on intersectionality and critical race theory. And a lot of our colleagues this year were saying, well, can you teach us this stuff? And as cringe as that was, right, it was the demand by white people that Black people tell them, teach them what they don't know. We thought that an anti-racism policy journal was the best way to, or just yet another place at Harvard that this work could be discussed. I'll talk for forever.
You just, no, that's fine. You were extremely thorough. I do have to go to break though, because I know Jeffrey has some follow-up questions, and you just gave us a lot to really think about. And I appreciate all of that. I want you to not touch that dial. We have so much more to learn from our very special guest today, Daryl Cuba. He is joining us on today's edition of Stage Door here on the Friday edition of The Source. Please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. It is the Friday edition of The Source, special segment called Stage Door, here with my very, very special co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Page. Hey, Jeffrey. And our special guest today is Daryl Cuba. We just heard a whole lot about how he came to do the work that he is doing right now, and it is quite a journey that you have had. I want to let Jeffrey take it away to kind of follow up on everything that you shared with us about how you got to this point to do all this work on anti-racism and policy. So, Jeffrey, what's your question?
Yeah, so Daryl, so I think it's so important for you to speak a little bit about how you move from being an actor into like some really heavy duty policy work. I think that's important for you to speak about. Before you do, I think with you talking about how race is not a real thing. For some people, that's like saying Santa Claus doesn't exist. Like that's huge. That's huge. I mean, Isabel Wilkerson talks about it inside of her book Caste. And a lot of people are speaking about it now. Ibram X. Kendi speaks about it a lot. Can you speak a little bit about that? And can you also talk about Bacon's rebellion? Like, I think that we have to understand the beginnings of this idea that you're speaking about. And I think that it stems from Bacon's rebellion. So if you could speak about that, I would greatly appreciate it.
So yeah, and I'll say that, I have to, sort of credit my parents and my family, extended family and community, because I was taught this at a very young age. So and maybe, I'll own the fact that I may have grown up in a kind of insular environment. My parents were both military, and, they were a product of like HBCUs, and there's a long tradition of that in my family. So I think I was kind of shocked to see that like the rest of the world didn't know these things, even though I was sort of intellectually prepared for it. It was, a shock for me to come up against that, so heavily or so, hard in this current world. But yeah, Bacon's rebellion. Being from the Tidewater in Virginia, I'm actually in the town where Bacon fled to when he was trying to get away from having burned down Jamestown, the capital. George Washington's great great grandfather, Augustine Warner, built the first plantation in my town, Gloucester, in the 1600s. And that's where Bacon fled to, and eventually ended up dying of typhoid or dysentery. But Bacon's rebellion was Lord Berkeley. The governor, Lord Berkeley, who was the royal governor of Virginia, had a cousin by marriage, Nathaniel Bacon, who had just come over from England, and he wanted more land and more stuff. And it was like a family feud. He wanted to rule. He thought he was more equipped to. And Governor Berkeley was like, wait, let's just, we already stole enough from the natives who helped us live through our starving time and this, last few decades. Let's not take too much away from them. But Bacon gathered the Africans who were there, 1619 on to like the 1670s, 76 when this happened. Africans were there, Europeans were there. They were all lower class because the colonial elite were comprised of the second and third sons of nobles, of English nobles, who eventually became the first families of Virginia. Like, that gave us the Washingtons and Jeffersons and Harrisons and all these other families.
And also the Pages. The Pages.
Well, they were all interrelated. They were all cousins. I think there's a joke that like by 1607, the early maybe 1610, 1612s, when the council, whatever the council was, not the House of Burgess, but the council was created. Everybody was a relative, and by like 1670s, everyone was a descendant of the original 12 councils. So it was a very tight-knit colonial group, and the Pages were, the Blands, the Wallers, the Taliaferros, all these, European families. But so Governor Lord Bacon's cousin by marriage was, wanted to rule himself. He had just come over. He was able to get the English and the Europeans and Africans. It was English by this time. And even some of the native communities who were did not want the British there in the first place, to band together and sort of overthrow, the capital that was Jamestown, and he burned it down. He put it, he lit it on fire, and the governor had to flee back to England, and he was sort of like winning that fight. Winter struck, and he had to flee again across the York River to Gloucester, my hometown. And Warner Hall, George Washington's great-grandfather's plantation, ended up dying. And so with his death, a lot of the people lost their leadership, and Governor Berkeley was able to come back with reinforcements from England and put it down. But when that happened, the colonial elite was sort of like, we can never have this happen again. And we have to convince our lower classes, because the people that overthrew them were all lower class people. We have to convince our lower classes, or we have to do something to separate the lower classes, right? There's a great less than 5-minute video by Berkeley's John A. Powell, Black legal scholar, who breaks it all down. He essentially says, the elite families got together and was like, look, and it took them like a long time, about almost 100 years, to sort of figure it out, because they had to create race. There was no such thing, no one ordered people by skin color and assigned values to them ever in the world until the 1700s, when Virginia codified race or white as a class of people into the law to convince the immigrants, the indentured servants coming over here from Europe, that they were going to be a separate class of people with privileges that all the other people branded not white were not going to get. And if you were branded black because of African ancestry, which gave us the one-drop rule of hypo descent, you could literally be enslaved for life, and your kids can be enslaved, and their kids into forever and ever. I'm messing up.
Right.
And so that was.
And it kind of it sounds like a weird version of the Handmaid's Tale. Like it sounds like it sounds like it just sounds so fake. It sounds so fake and so like this is a movie. This could never happen, but it actually happened when the chick from the Handmaid's Tale, when she went to go get coffee and she paid. And she went to give her credit card, and the credit card was declined, and it was like literally the declining of society. Like that is exactly what happened in Germany. In Germany, when Hitler's regime started to take over, and that's exactly what happened with Bacon's Rebellion, and actually Hitler was inspired by America. Hitler, like the man that people vilify and whatnot, he was inspired by how America did it so well. I'm sorry to jump in. I just had to like connect the dots, because it sounds so like crazy.
Yeah, that's a great. It's good that you mentioned that, because there's a great book by Yale professor John Q. Whitman, I think, called Hitler's American Model, that literally, like, through scholarship, says qualifies everything you just said. Actually, the Nazis looked at America, how we treated the Native Americans with reservations, and of course the Africans on plantations, and actually said America went too far, right? And so it's interesting again that a Yale professor had to
wait, brother. I have to just say this just so everybody hears it. You telling me, because I've read this before, now I just want to make sure that everybody hears it. You saying that Hitler's people actually said, Hitler, the guy who killed people and like the whole nine, said America, I'm inspired by America, but they went too far. Is that what you're saying to me?
Yes, John Q. Whitman's Hitler's American Model lays that out. Also, people like Marika Sherwood with her race education. But she sort of explains how like the British devised not only what was going on in the colonies, but from the British, from the continent, from the the homeland in the UK, a way to sort of teach race to its whole empire, to make sure that these notions and systems, institutions of white supremacy became deeply embedded in the society. And then Columbia's first Black woman to be tenured, Dr. Barbara Fields, along with her sister, Karen Fields, who's, I think she's still a Yale professor, wrote a great book called Racecraft. sort of documenting how, just like witchcraft, race has to be or had to be created through racism. You had to have a system and institutions that structure society to able to have a identifier like race. Just like with witchcraft, if people don't believe in witchcraft, no one believes in witches. There just are no witches. You have to create the system, institutions, and structures of witchcraft to have a witch, and you have to create the systems, institutions, and structures of racism to have race. So that's what they did, and that's the problem we've all lived with, as we see to this day, with what's going on with Nicole Hannah-Jones, for the New York Times at UNC, denying her, all the stuff they're doing with that. I don't know where that is right now, but just the initial ways that they're controlling how these things are taught. How race is taught, how the history of the country is taught. And again, I was shocked that our mid-careers did not know these things. I don't know why I was shocked, but I was. I thought, smart Harvard people who had, come from some of the most privileged places in the world, or, would at least have heard this stuff before, but no, they had not.
That's go ahead, Tiffany. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just responding to everything he's just saying. I'm soaking it in.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because what you're doing for me is you are helping me to understand more fully, what my next question is the importance of story, drama, the importance of who we are and what we do as artists. People, and the importance of what this show is. So I'm super happy to have you on, because I've been trying to figure out a way to explain to the Philadelphia community, like what Tiffany and I are attempting to do with this show, with Stage Door, with the segment of with Stage Door, and I think what it is to show that the important points of intersection that art creates. And so with art, we start to learn narrative. We start to, it's this thing that jumps inside of our body, kind of, how I think about it. It's like Matrix, when Neo jumps inside of the detective at the end of the first Matrix. He jumps inside of him, like, and he explodes from the inside out, right? So he destroys him from the inside out. In a way, that's kind of what art does. It starts to shift your perspectives and your thinking. So actually, art is very, 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 very important. If we understand that Hitler was also inspired by Richard Wagner, in order to build this world, and Richard Wagner, of course, is a composer. You know what I mean? So how important is art? So that brings me to my next question of what is the importance of art? What is the importance of building a narrative, and a narrative that we could actually conceive of, a narrative that we could actually fathom to be true, a narrative that is similar to Santa Claus, a narrative that we can say that we can give a flesh to, and blood and life to, that we can say this is a narrative that lives and breathes. It's like a dragon. We don't know if the Loch Ness monster exists or not, so how important is art with respect to what you're speaking about, with respect to creating these theories of race politics?
I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking of course, like the Black women that sort of lead with this, right? Cara Walker, Carrie Mae Weems, Betty Saar, and all the other sort of people that, like you say, get inside of it and just explode the mythology, right? And it's interesting you bring up Matrix. I remember for a very long time there was sort of the what's it called, like the theory, or maybe conspiracy theory. I don't know how much of a conspiracy it was, but that the Matrix series was originally thought of by a Black woman, who was literally talking about systems, the white supremacy that our culture was sort of created in and of, right, our modern society, and how as people woke up to white supremacy and its detrimental effects, not only of those they call not white, but on themselves, the sort of what's it called, the cognitive dissonance that happens when people start realizing, like, oh my God, wait, race isn't real. I'm not a white person. I'm not a black person. This was something that was created to sort of oppress people. And I just remember, I remember following that thread because I was going to do a story for Vice on it, and I never did it. But just, thinking about how so many people have said this well before John Q. Whitman at Yale wrote the book, Hitler's American Model. How many black women have said these things? I remember I took Dr. Mazama back at Temple. I was talking to Tiffany about this earlier. And she was talking about this, a black woman on Temple's campus talking about sort of the matrix of whiteness and white supremacy that, to be honest, these poor immigrant, or immigrant descendants just sort of like had no way to buffer against. I mean, so at Hacking Racism, we talked about the fact that the sad thing is that Europe had developed its society in a like strict feudal system where a small minority that called itself the nobility and the royals, had all access to all the resources, and everybody else had almost nothing, right? They were considered peasants. And of course, eventually there was a, business bourgeoisie class, but for the most part, the majority of people were rendered resourceless. They weren't educated. The church had a lot to do with all this. So when they were running away, from the successive European issues, through the last 500 years, they came to the colonies and were promised whiteness, and that was their better life, right? That they could now be a color that other people were not, and they would get things that other people would not. So it trapped them in the matrix that they still are, trying to get out of to this day. And I think, as I was talking about my own colleagues this year, struggling, and I had many private conversations, even with the ones that we sort of had, our WhatsApp chat fights. We sort of had these private conversations where I sort of realized like they didn't know this stuff, no matter how much wealth their family had acquired, how much status they had, over the years. Some of these people, were royalty or nobility, and we're proud to let you know that. And but they had never been taught these things, right? So they were in their own matrix, and it was like a process of grief to watch
I'm
them
sorry, I have
struggle.
to interrupt you right there. I just hold on to that point. We have to go to commercial break. When we come back, we will continue our very intriguing conversation with our very special guest, Daryl Cuba. We will all be right back after this.
About the stages of grief. About the stages of grief that people who call them
And welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We are in the final segment of today's edition of Stage Door. Of course, my co-host is Mr. Jeffrey Page, and our very special guest is Daryl Cuba. You were in the middle of something when I had to cut you short to go to break. So if you can just pick up where you left off, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was just talking about the stages of grief that people who call themselves white or who think they're a color that others are not go through when they realize that, you know, they were sort of bamboozled by the colonial elite into, you know, believing in race and sort of white supremacy systemically. And like I said, to get back to like why art is so important, I was a Wikipedia fellow at Columbia for those 2 years, and we got our first thing black COO, Janine Uzel, who started sort of a hashtag about like who tells your story, because unfortunately, white supremacy is so systemic, you know, that even a place like Wikipedia, which is the largest site for knowledge, you know, in the world, and it's free, it's accessible to everyone, but depends on the, you know, mainstream media as sourcing and academic scholarship, which is all riddled in racist, you know, content. And so they just replicate these things. I don't know, at Columbia, we launched this thing called Disrupt Wikipedia to bring attention to that. And again, just like what happens with our chat, with my Harvard cohort this year at Columbia, or just on Wikipedia, people were angry. The editors, Wikipedia editors, were angry that a fellow, you know, I guess I had some sort of privilege that they, you know, were angry, were resentful of, was saying that, you know, the project was racist or systemically white supremacy, or systemically white supremacist, to the point where I was like, you know, blocked and banned, and I was strung up in a kangaroo court that Wikipedia has, and told I couldn't, you know, write about race, write or edit about race, or you know, all the stuff I was talking about. And it started because I attempted to put the freedom colonies on Wikipedia. As I was learning about them, not only was I mapping them on Google Maps, I was trying to add them in like a database on Wikipedia. And I started to realize that, like, you know, for famous people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, in the lead, there was no mention that these people were enslavers or slaveholders. Like, it wasn't important, right? You had to, for most of them, that was not mentioned anywhere on their pages. And some of the pushback from the other editors of Wikipedia was like, well, you know, mainstream media doesn't say that was important about them. So to the point of art, you know, because I started off as a theater, or ended as a theater major after in college, and I was, you know, auditioning around Philadelphia, participating in, you know, all the sort of indie things you do. Just from auditioning, you know, you could see that like everything was racialized. You know, the casting calls were racialized. There was a black, you know, guy, and a lot, you know, they had ideas for who these people were and how they were supposed to act. And, you know, I was all about stretching myself, you know, to be and play things that I wasn't, but everything was a thug, right? And the overwhelming thing was, you know, for a black person was, you know, I mean, there was nothing about like black doctors. And, you know, again, with a family from the HBCUs, you know, the first HBCU was in 1837. So I was like, wait, where are the black scholars, the black artists, the black doctors, the black lawyers, or just black people just being people, you know, either with magical Negroes or, you know, the stereotypes. And that's when I started to realize how impactful or how real racism was, even though scientifically, genetically, biologically, there was no basis for race. And so it was my own, you know, learning about how insidious or, you know, systemic all this stuff was, and then responding to that has sort of gotten me to what I do now. Because again, I never, you know, set out to be the black guy with the Latin last name of all things, talking about race. That was not what I thought.
You know, it's you know, it's interesting, Daryl, because you know, by my estimation, I'm so glad you brought up the Matrix and the ideas of it. Isabel Wilkerson talks about the same thing that you mentioned in her book Caste, where the initial ideation of the Matrix was about the matrix of whiteness, right? And so then Hollywood took it and said, oh, this would be a great blah, 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 blah. And they created this whole thing. But then also, Daryl, I think about True Blood, and I think about, you know, HBO's series True Blood, and I think about so many other artistic renderings that attempt to foment some kind of protest. That if we only open our eyes and clear our minds, then we can start to understand the deeper metaphor that is at play. And I feel like that's what I'm getting from you is there is a true intersection of how we need to be looking and ingesting art, because these are coded messages that happen, that if we are in tune to these coded messages, we start to understand, you know, the SOS. You know, we start to understand the cry out, the cry for help. You know, if we start to look very, very meticulously at these artistic renderings, like I think about The Handmaid's Tale, like I think about, you know, the Jezebel class of women in that series, and what and the kinds of things that they needed to do, and the Martha class of women, and the kinds of things that they needed to do in order to pass messages along. And it's very similar to what happened with Africans, with enslaved Africans, you know, in the Americas. And it's also very similar to what's happening with our ideas of race and race politics. That leads me to this idea of critical race theory, you know, and what's happening right now in America, especially, you know, with Florida being the latest state, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Florida is the latest state to ban any conversations of critical race theory inside of the school systems. How impactful do you think that is? And how important is it that you think that we should know about what's happening and get behind it? And if I may, what is your work doing in order to speak to that? Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, Daryl.
No. I'm just saying, like, the thing about critical race theory and all this, you know, middle American or whatever it is, hubbub, you know, there's GOP or conservative movement backlash against it. I mean, critical race theory for the most part is like a legal framework to understand how, you know, the systems that was built, the modern Western world was built on, you know, the idea of race theory, that there were races that people were. And, you know, and I think it was created to sort of critically examine the law as intersects with race, right? I'm not a lawyer, but, you know, as we follow these things, so like on the one hand, I think I saw someone tweeted like, look, if your child is learning critical race theory, like, celebrate, because it means they made it to law school, right? You know, critical race theory is not being taught and probably 99.9% of anywhere outside of like incredibly privileged law environments like Harvard Law, where I think Derek Bell, was Derek Bell at Harvard Law? Yeah, I mean, there's just, you know, where all the scholars came up with, you know, a way to sort of expand critical theory, right? So the backlash against it is just, unfortunately, the elite, you know, the conservative elite, using anything to sort of rile their base up, you know, and to cause distraction and deflection. But it is going to have sort of ramifications because, you know, all these different people in public school, you know, in the public school who are angry at critical race theory. I mean, it's kind of comical because they don't even know what they're angry at, right? They have no fear. They have no fear of learning critical race theory. They're not in law school. They're not going to, and, you know,
wait, I hate to break it here. We are literally out of time for the show. We're like out of time. So before we continue, the hour goes by way too fast. Before we completely shut down the whole show and the segment, please tell us what you have coming up next and how people can follow your work on social media.
Okay, so the biggest thing is the Harvard Anti-Racist Policy Journal, and we're Harvard ARPJ on all across social media. We have a website, arpj.hkspublications.org. You can just Google Harvard Anti-Racist Policy Journal, and we're already up and running, but we're going to get better because we just launched. So the incoming class and all the Harvardians, the whole Harvard University community are working hard to really, put together things like this, like podcasts and panels, and of course the scholarship and the essays that are going to be, that we're going to be collecting. We're open for submissions, so any of those mediums, social media, and the website, you'll find out how to submit. So come join us, come work with us to help stem this tide of, anti-critical race theory and other sort of anti-historical analysis that our culture, our country is starting to do.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. Daryl Cuba, thank you. Much love to you. Jeffrey Page, of course, to Miss Kayla J, Kay Bellamy, and all my guests today. Have a peaceful, positive, and productive remainder of your Friday. Brother Shamari is next. Take care.